Showtime.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 7th meeting of the Goochland County Planning Commission. Mrs. Parker, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. All present, we have a quorum.
Do we rise for the pledge and invocation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We thank you for the opportunity to come together and to gather this evening. We ask for your hand for blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide us and direct our meeting so it's full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Amen. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Oh, yes. Mr. Chairman, I have two corrections I'd like to make. One on page 7 and one on page 13 of the minutes, where it says recommended for denial. And the vote was 1-4, and that should be 4-1.
Any other comments or questions on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve with the adjustments Mr. Roccacherelli stated?
I move that we approve it with the adjustments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll now open the citizens' comment period. Anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on a topic not on the agenda tonight, you may do so at this time. Seeing no one would like to come forward, we will close the citizen comment period. Mrs. Parker.
No requests for deferrals, additions, deletions, or changes.
All right.
Our first public hearing item tonight is in District 2, CU 2014-00001A, application filed by Chicken Egg Productions, LLC, requesting to renew a conditional use permit to operate a professional office, restaurant, and commercial kitchen at 2753 Dogtown Road on tax map number 29100B0. The property is zoned A1 Agricultural General and is 1.15 acres. The conditional use permit is required by Article 2, Section 312, 325, and 326 of the Goochland County Zoning Ordinance. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement area.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Tom Coleman, Principal Planner. As Ms. Parker said, this is a renewal of an existing conditional use permit to operate a commercial kitchen, restaurant, and office on Dogtown Road. This is centrally located in the county. Look at the adjacent property, and several of the properties in that area are designated for rural enhancement. It is close to the Central High School facility, which is recommended for public and county-owned or institutional, and the Envoy at the Meadows, which is the assisted living facility, is located just to the south of the site. Subject property and all the surrounding properties are zoned agriculturally. And just looking at the aerial photo, you see the Central High School facility and the Envoy facility to the south. And kind of zooming in, you see the subject property, shows the building and the associated parking. There was a community meeting held in January. No neighbors attended the meeting. Just talking briefly about the uses. The primary use of this facility is the commercial kitchen. Have a couple pictures of that there. They also operate an office from this facility. They're not currently operating the restaurant. They did get approval for that, and with the renewal, they would continue to have the opportunity to do that. However, operating as a restaurant would require some additional parking, some changes to the site that require a PUD. That has not been done, so that would have to do that before they could use it as a restaurant. Looking at the conditions, for the most part, they are the same. There's one new condition, and then the two conditions were updated. but just to go through those briefly, the new condition, number 1, identifies the uses that are approved in the CUP or recommended for approval. The second one addresses parking. The third one addresses the requirement for dark sky compliant lighting. Fourth one addresses hours of operation. The fifth one would limit signage or detached signage on the property. Sixth one addresses the required health department approval. The seventh would be the restaurant if they chose to operate that. With the expiration, in accordance with our policy, this one was approved for 5 years. If this one would be approved, the staff recommendation is for 10 years. And the ninth one is our standard condition that addresses the sale of the property or the exchange of the lease. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Coleman, I remember this application from a few years ago, but a commercial kitchen, do they do catering?
What they do is they lease the kitchen out to other entities, and they could be caterers, they could be, you know, a type of business where they need a facility. Maybe it's a home-based business where they can't prepare the food at their home, but this has the commercial refrigeration and things like that. Okay.
I recall it from last time there that you mentioned it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Did staff have any concerns with the additions or changes to the CUP?
No, we're good with that.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening. For allowing me the opportunity to speak. Just to clarify your question about who uses the kitchen, over the past 5 years, we have had 45 different separate entities use the business to rent, to have commercial kitchen space available for them. We've had meal prep delivery businesses, which are really cropping up. They're very popular right now. We've got 13 caterers, 6 different meal prep delivery businesses, 14 specialty food producers, 9 food trucks, 1 non-food producer who made skincare products, and 2 local farmers use our walk-in freezer to store their pork products. And so there's 45 businesses altogether. Found it interesting that almost 70% of them have been women or minority owned. So we do provide a lot of consulting and assistance for new startups, especially women and minority owned businesses. And we have some all different types of products coming out of the kitchen, including 1 Oprah Winfrey finest or favorite comes out of our kitchen, and we have 14 Virginia finest products also that are produced there. Do you have any other questions for me?
Any questions?
Yeah, we've never had any issues with neighbors or anything, so it's been going really well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name and address.
Thank you. Lisa Dearden. My address is 3330 Cedar Plains Road in Sandy Hook.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward, speak in favor or against? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen, any questions?
I'll make a move that we approve the continuing use permit as written.
I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Recommend approval.
Our second case for tonight is in District 4, CU 2019-00002. Application filed by Hazel Fleming requesting a conditional use permit to allow truck hauling operations exceeding 3 trucks at 1701 Mannequin Road on tax map number 58-1-0-11-0. The property is zoned A2 Agricultural Limited and is 3.46 acres. The conditional use permit is required by Article 3, Section 331 of the Goochland County Zoning Ordinance. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement area.
Good evening, Greg Garrison, Principal Planner. This is a request for a conditional use permit for truck hauling operation exceeding 3 trucks at 1581 Maidens Road. Property is located in the Mannequin Sabbath area. 2035 Comprehensive Plan recommends rural enhancement for this property as well as the surrounding properties. Current zoning is agriculture for the surrounding properties as well as this one.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes?
That's Mannequin Road, not Meadens Road? Is that
I'm sorry, Mannequin Road, yes.
All right.
Property is mostly wooded. This picture is not completely up to date. There is now a house that is built in the center, but all the woods around it are still existing. The applicant does plan to live on the premises, or he is currently living on the premises. A2 zoning does permit up to 3 trucks by right, and the applicant is requesting to keep up to 10 trucks at his site. He only uses 1 to 3 a day. However, there are certain circumstances when he needs a different type of truck. This is the concept plan. The truck parking area will be down here. He does propose to put 2 sections of fence up to help mitigate visibility. And then there'll be employee, if he has some helpers, they'll be parking their cars over here on this side. There will be a tree save area, or there is currently a tree save area around the site. A POD will be required for this, and that's and the conditional use permit would limit the hours of operation Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday. No truck hauling operations would occur on Sunday. Access to the site will be provided by an existing 20-foot private road off of Mannequin Road that serves approximately 8 properties. A community meeting was held on January 24th at Mount Olive Baptist Church. Staff, Planning Commissioner Mr. Duke, and 15 citizens attended that meeting. There were no concerns with the proposed conditional use permit, and all were in support of the applicant. Should the commission recommend approval of this request, the following conditions are recommended. The first one deals with the use, the truck hauling exceeding 3 trucks. Number 2 deals with the conceptual plan, as shown on Exhibit A. Number 3 limits the amount of trucks on the property to 10. Number 4 deals with outside storage of petroleum, vehicle parts, equipment, supplies. Number 5 deals with screening, that an opaque fence or sections of fences will be as shown on Exhibit A. And Dale also mentions the 10-foot wide natural buffer along the north and south property line, and that screening materials shall be installed within 60 days of the conditional use permit approval. Number 6 deals with the parking and parking waiver. The parking must comply with the POD, and that will be shown and approved. Number 7 deals with repair activities. All repair will be conducted within a building. No outside repairs are permitted. Number 8 deals with county, state, and federal laws and regulations. Number 9 deals with the hours of operation, as I previously mentioned. Number 10 is the expiration for 5 years in March 2024. And number 11 is the standard condition for the transfer or lease of the property. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is also available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Garrison? Would the applicant like to say anything? Just provide your name and address.
My name is Hazel Freeman, 1701 Mannequin Road. All right. I got 10 trucks. I don't use them all every day. I want to know what the problem is and why I can't work on, where I need to work on. Ain't nobody back up with me.
You don't have any employees?
Yeah, I got employees, yeah. But I'm back off the road. You can't see my house from the road. You can't see trucks from the road. So what is the issue? What's the complaint about?
And just out of curiosity, what's the most amount of trucks you have on the road at one time?
About 4 or 5. Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Fleming? I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against, please come forward, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Orlando Duke, and I have a lot right next to Hazel's. Also, my nephew has the lot in front of Hazel's. My sister has the lot to the other side of Hazel. So we're all around him. And we've known him for years and years. You could not ask for a better neighbor. When that road, when I'm snowed in, and I kind of don't want to go to work anyway, Hazel comes and plows me out. I don't ask him. And it's a 3/10 of a long driveway. Like, he has the right of way through our property. He's very respectful. He's very considerate. You can't ask for a better neighbor. I can't see taking this man's mode of earning a living away. That is hard work. I mean, if you took it away, he'd be out with his chainsaw doing firewood or something else. He makes me feel trifling. I mean, he does everything. There were a few potholes last week in that road. Hazel goes and fills them all in. No. This man needs to keep on with his job. Don't take that away from him. Thank you.
My name's Marlon Ellis. I live at 1750 Mannequin Road. We have lived at that location since 1964. My mother's house was at 1800. I totally agree with what Mr. Duke said. Hazel Fleming's one of the hardest working men I've ever known. We lived directly across the street from them until they moved a half mile down the street, and now they're just a tiny bit off Mannequin Road. But there's never a day that Hazel isn't out there working and helping neighbors. And he did the same thing for us. When we had snow, he helped us out. If we need gravel, he helped us out. And he doesn't charge all the time. And he's just a hard-working man that deserves a break. And he needs those 10 trucks because he's constantly hauling different things, big loads, little loads, and switching them out. Stuff breaks down, tires blow out, and you have to keep on going. So I highly recommend you thinking about compassion and keeping a hard-working man on the road. And don't give him things that are obstacles to him being able to keep running his trucks and making a living. Because Hazel's not a young man either. I'm an old lady, and he's not that far behind me, but he still works hard every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yes, my name is Herman Fleming. I live at 1663 Mannequin Road. And I also have property, maybe 3 lots down from Hazel on the same private road. Like everybody said, Hazel is a hard-working person. And for us that the trucks that he have there, I can't understand why y'all limit to from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the evening. When the truck is, when it's gone, the truck is gone all day. It's not like, you know, he's coming in and out 50 or 100 times a day. So why it's not disturbing me and not disturbing the random neighbors? It's just 1 or 2 people just complaining about this. I know that he's limited to 3 trucks. This is what it's all about. By him having 10 trucks out there, which he don't use all the time, and then you limit to him, I don't understand why you limit to him. He cannot work on his trucks. You know, he's not back there bothering nobody. And for us, if you go there and put a big building back there, you probably have a problem with that. So it looks like you're tired to tie his hand down for making a living. All the man, he just want to make a good living. So do I do. I have trucks myself. And why are you putting all this restriction on him? I don't understand it. Like, you cannot operate on Sundays. He's not driving in and out all day on Sundays. When that truck leaves that truck in the morning, you probably don't see it in the motel at 7 o'clock that evening. You got other business around there. They operate that business on Sundays. Nothing is said. I'm confused about that. And why are you putting restriction on him? I don't understand that. If you're going to shut down his business on Sunday, shut down everybody's business. Food line, all the stores down there. They are business just like him. But he's just a private person trying to make a living. And I hope that y'all consider, let him do his thing. He's not hurting him. But if you got something that he wants to straighten up, he'd be glad to straighten it up. If you got something you want to clean up, he'd be glad to do it. He's not out there trying to pull the neighborhood down. He's just trying to make a living. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Ben Otley. I live at 1705 Mannequin Road. My lot's the one that touches Hazel's property along the private road and also goes to the intersection of that private road and Mannequin Road. I have absolutely no problem with Hazel's operation. His drivers are always very cautious and aware. I've got 2 dogs and 2 little children, and they're always slow and mindful. Been great. Hazel's an excellent neighbor. And even from our farm right across from Hazel's, you can barely even see anything through the trees. So as far as his trucks or whatever else he has over there, this is of no bother to myself or my family whatsoever, and in full support of him.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Pam Otley, and I have the farm directly across from Hazel. And ever since I was 6 years old, he's been there. He's taken care of me, pulled my car out, got me unstuck. His father used to pick me up when I ran out of gas. But what I don't understand is all this is coming from one person who's never even lived in Goochland. He wants to come in, he wants to tear Hazel's life apart. He wants to say, you all don't know what you're doing. You're looking at natural things, dump trucks, big trucks, little trucks. We've looked at them all our lives, and they have gotten me out of trouble more times than I care to answer for. But I don't understand why Goochland would let one man come in and do this to this man. Can you answer that? Can you tell me who it is that's making all this trouble that made me have to come out here on Thursday night and do this? I mean, no, it's not your fault. Carter, you're laughing because you know. Do y'all answer questions? No, you don't, huh? Not at all? Oh, come on.
None of us would know who it is.
What do you mean? No. Somebody told you to do this, right? Okay, not going to answer. Just thought I'd ask. Well, I hope Hazel gets to stay just like he is. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen, questions, concerns, questions for staff about the CUP that we have before us?
The only question I have is that I'm assuming the conditions are consistent with other operations, some of those throughout the county.
Well, we don't have a lot of operations like this, and this is pretty unique. So this has been interesting, to say the least. I mean, a lot of what we see is the by right, 3 trucks. And as you're aware of by now, we did receive a complaint on this, and that's why we're going through this process now. I mean, Mr. Fleming did operate for over 30 years at Grand and Mannequin Road. Grand Drive.
How many complaints do we have on this?
Just one, sir.
Just one.
And we never have anybody speak in favor of much of anything, and have 10 people here in favor of what he wants tonight.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rocca-Charlie, if I may, while Mr. Garrison correctly said there isn't another use like this, the conditions were derived from automobile repair and automobile storage.
That's right.
CUPs that we do have standard conditions on. So that is the origin of them, though they haven't really been used
Yes.
with truck hauling.
Thank you for that clarification, yes.
There is a set of uniform conditions for those that this came from.
So did staff work with the applicant on?
Yes,
the conditions?
we talked about the hours of operation. We talked about the limit on trucks. All this was vetted through Mr. Fleming, and he was fine with that. Right, Mr. Fleming? Yeah.
I assume that the hours of operation, especially Sunday, is only the hauling operation, not repair.
Correct.
He's got repairing the trucks inside. He can do that 24/7.
Well, from our conversation, he only operates Monday through Friday, but, you know, the CUP allows Saturday, and it was just kind of a standard, the Sunday, no operation on Sunday was kind of a standard condition.
Procedural, we just, in a CUP, we can only enforce, it's complaint-based, correct? If there's
Typically, that's how, yes, that's typically how it works.
And what is our term on this CUP to start?
This will be 5 years.
Okay.
I mean, other than the number of trucks, is there anything else that's inconsistent with the zoning? I mean,
No, sir.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have
I move that we approve it as it's written.
the CUP as written. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's recommended for approval. Thank you.
Our next case this evening is in District 3, CU 2019-00004. Application filed by John O. Brockenbrough, requesting a conditional use permit to operate a distillery at 2750 Maidens Loop on tax map numbers 4210280 and 4210290. The property is zoned A2 Agricultural Limited and is a total of 7.09 acres. The conditional use permit is required by Article 3, Section 336 of the Goochland County Zoning Ordinance. The comprehensive plan designates this area as single-family residential low density.
Good evening. This is a request for a conditional use permit to operate a distillery on less than 50 acres at 2750 Maiden Loop. Property is located in the central part of the county. Comp plan recommends single-family residential low density, and to the east would be county, public-owned, institutional. That's where the post office is. So that's why that's identified like that. And then to the south is Maidens Park. Property is zoned agriculture as well as mostly the surrounding, except for the area where the post office is, it's business. Site is mostly wooded. There is an existing house that the applicant will live in. Access to this site is via Maidens Loop, and it goes across a private 50-foot access easement, and it is through a commercial area. As I mentioned, applicant will live on the property. He plans to modify an existing pole building to house the whiskey and bourbon barrels and construct a second 30 by 64 pole building to house the distillery and the tasting room. This is a concept of the layout. Up top, I don't know if you can see, but that's the existing pole building that will be modified to house the bourbon. Right here is the new 30 by 64 distillery and tasting room. The existing house is right here, and then these areas will be used for parking. A POD will be required for this. Any event larger than the approved occupancy will require a special event permit, and the occupancy will be approved with that POD. The conditional use permit would permit hours of operation for the tasting room to be 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thursday through Saturday, distilled spirits may be sold during hours and days permitted by ABC retail operations. Access to the site, as I mentioned, is provided by an existing driveway across a 50-foot access easement via Maiden's Loop. The applicant is requesting a waiver for Section 10 of the zoning ordinance, which prohibits places of public assembly when the principal point of vehicular access is on a private road that is shared by other properties. And this is a plat. It does show that 50-foot access easement right there and down here, both labeled. A community meeting was held on January 28th at 2750 Maiden's Loop. Staff, board member Mr. Alvarez, planning commissioner Mr. Duke, and 8 residents attended that meeting. And there were questions about the products being distilled, private wells, and impacts on adjoining properties, signage, and questions about the future expansions. Should the planning commission recommend approval of this, the following conditions are recommended. Number 1, deals with the distillery, the use as a distillery. Number 2, a plan of development will be required prior to operations. Number 3 deals with the site plan as shown on Exhibit A. Number 4 is regarding the parking and parking waiver. And number 5 deals with an access waiver per Section 10 that I previously discussed. Number 6, signs, deals with signage on the property. Number 7 deals with hours of operation, as previously mentioned. Number 8, music, no subwoofers or amplification, audible. Number 9 deals with lighting, dark sky compliant. Number 10 is our standard condition about transferring or leasing the property. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And the applicant is available as well as his representative.
Any questions for Mr. Garrison at the moment?
The only one I have is the shared access road, is that paved or gravel?
The access is paved. It's through the parking lot of the commercial use.
Any other questions for Mr. Garrison? Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, my name is Darvin Satterwhite, 3013 River Road West. I'm here for the applicant, John O. Brokenbraw. He will be living on the site. There is, this is A2, obviously we're not changing the zoning. It'll still have the residential character, and we're doing some renovation to the housing right now on it. John is a master distiller, so not only will he live there, but he will be overseeing the distillery itself. What we have here, and we don't have the 50 acres, so hence we're before you tonight, but we do have what is probably more acreage, if I can show. Okay. We do have more acreage than actually is shown on the tax records. This is the larger parcel, and I'll show you in a minute the layout, and this is the adjoining. Both of these parcels together are over 7 acres. The tax records show them slightly less than that, but we do have a little over 7 acres to work with there. As Mr. Garrison pointed out, not only is our property heavily wooded, and these are mature oak trees, poplars, pines, they're fairly mature. Not only are the ones on our property mature, but also you can see the adjoining properties are fairly heavily wooded as well. It is our intention to leave what you see there in place. There's no real need to move any of the trees or keep them move them out of there. It's good screening. We will want to keep that, so that will stay as it is. The designation of what we have here is called a micro distillery, micro craft distillery. So the production is limited. For purposes of the regulatory agency that we're dealing with, the alcohol and tobacco folks, we can't have more than 100,000 gallons of sales per year. We can't go over that. So we're limited to that. It will be that limited production. What we'll have basically as product would be whiskey, bourbon, gin, vodka, perhaps a clear liqueur, but mostly the whiskey, bourbon, gin, and vodka would be the product that you'd have there. Again, there are 2 parcels. The only thing that we have different on our conceptual plan that's being shown to you here that's different from the one that the county showed, this is the one that we used at the community meeting. And the only thing we have added is an extra storage building. I'll show you that in a second. But overall, it's the exact same sketch that you saw the county presented to you. We would like this to be considered a conceptual plan with regard to our cup. That, what you see there, number 7, is the existing pole barn that we have. It's a 20 by 30 shed. It'll be used for storage of approximately 40 barrels. The only thing that we'll need to do with that existing building to modify it is simply to strengthen the floor. We'll probably put in a 4-inch concrete floor. So the building, the exterior and the appearance and that building is really not going to change. What we do have as the main building is this number 4. That will be the proposed distillery building itself. It also has a small tasting room connected with it. The additional building that you see right there, that number 8, is a future storage building. Basically the same size as the existing storage, but it fits well in that corner of the property, and of course being very close to the existing storage facility, it makes practical sense to put it there. The request for a waiver with regard to the road, Mr. Garrison's described that. What we're really talking about is just that paved portion that's in front of the post office area. I would say I'm ballparking about 60 feet perhaps is what it is. The road requirement that comes into play, as you may recall, when the Licking Hole Brewery was approved, that roadway, I'm assuming, was somewhere around a half a mile or more in there. This is just a small overlap. We go right from in front of the the post office in there and right into our driveway. So the overlap is just very minimal there with respect to what the original requirement was for that particular condition, and we're asking a waiver for that. And I think the county staff has supported that. With regard to the tasting room, it's fairly heavily regulated by the ABC. It's very different, the regulations are, than what you would see with a brewery for beer. The amount of consumption is extremely limited. For example, you couldn't have but a half an ounce served of each product, and you could only serve 4 products. Nobody, no matter what they selected, 2 products, 3 or 4, nobody could have more than 3 ounces at one time. They would have to leave and come back on another day. The tasting room is not a major part of this facility. Hence, that's why it's limited to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the limited hours, 1 o'clock to 7. So it's a much smaller scale tasting room than anything you would normally see with a beer type brewery. We have the conditions. We've reviewed those that the county had proposed. We're certainly 100% in favor of those. We think they make good sense, and certainly would endorse those. The building that we're going to put in place for the actual distillery and tasting room, this is a rendering of it with regard to its location and proximity to the existing dwelling. That area is fairly level and is not really treed now. So again, this would be the major part of our construction, would not require any tree usage. We think as the staff has reported out in the staff report, it is consistent with a comprehensive plan in supporting tourism and agribusiness. one of the interesting things about this, the grains that would be used, we would hope, at least would be more economic for us to use local grains from local farmers. But what is also interesting is the mash product that is a byproduct from the distillery is actually quite sought after as a forage for cattle. So there may be some quid pro quo on the trading there with cattle, with the cattle farmers, not only with regard to using their grains, but also potentially having a feed base for cattle. So we think it is consistent with the comprehensive plan for the very same reasons that the county staff has pointed out, and will stay also in that low residential character that we're keeping by keeping Mr. Brokenbrough there on the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you've got. Mr. Brokenbrough's here. Mr. and Mrs. Brokenbrough have also been familiar with the planned operation. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Have they estimated what their approximate water consumption will be in the distillation process?
I'm not sure what the gallons would be, but I do know what the source is. We'd be using a drilled deep well, a cistern type well, but with the type of water flow that we see in the area, and we don't think we would have any issue with regard to the amount of usage that we'd be bearing off there.
What would be the main grain? Barley?
Wheat, actually.
Rye or what?
Wine.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh,
Yes.
old school.
Will they be using an Will they be using an existing well?
No, it's going to be a new drilled well.
Do they know what the gallons per minute on the existing well on the property is?
We do not. The existing well, is that a bored well?
You know, all I can tell you is it's a shallow well, Carl, with
Yeah.
the drill company.
I think it's a shallow well.
He hasn't drilled yet. Clearly, we didn't want to spend $10,000 for a well until you all had left.
Yeah.
I don't think the bored well would suffice, but we would anticipate a drill well being sufficient.
All right. Any other questions?
Will the addition of these buildings require any clearing of trees, or is it all vacant land?
It's all vacant. The biggest building, as you can see, would be this distillery, and it's, I'm not sure what was there. Something had been cleared and flattened there, like maybe for a tent or something, and so we would not need to clear anything there. The existing barn, obviously with the construction being the floor, having to reinforce that would not affect any trees. And the building next to it, if there's a tree, it's not of a significant size next to it. It may be a tree, but not your trees in general. We want to keep as much of the screening as possible.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sadway.
Okay, thank you.
We'll now open the public hearing. In this case, anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address.
My name is Freddie Edwards, and I own the property 2746 Maidens Loop, which is the property they be driving in front of. I've met with and talked with the Brockenboroughs. I'm a small businessman. I love small business. And if I'm honest, they had me a tasting room. So just here to recommend that they get the conditional use permit they do, because I think it's a great Goochland small business. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Alan Tucker, and I'm at 2760 Maidens Loop. And my question would be the designation of the entryway and any improvements as far as clearing to get yourself into the shared driveway.
Yeah, we address the board if we want to make a comment. So you have a concern with what? Again, let's state.
Well, it's just a matter of the signage to be sure which driveway they'll be properly going into for the business, as well as because there's a shared driveway at that point.
To get to your property.
With limited visibility when we intersect. So to make sure we're opening up to limit any possibility of an accident.
All right. Any staff, do we have anything to address?
We're limited to 25 square feet of a sign, so I'm assuming they would have a sign probably at the, let me go back a little bit. I believe right here is kind of the area of concern. So there's a driveway that goes up this way, and then the applicant's driveway comes up this way. So I'm only assuming, and Mr. Satterwhite can correct me if I'm wrong, that they'll have a sign, and they are permitted a sign up to 25 square feet.
All right. And the public hearing still is open, so would anyone else like to speak, and we'll get a comment from you in just a minute. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or against? Any comments? Mr. Satterwhite, would you like to address the concern?
You know, the signage is certainly to our benefit to have that in a way that nobody's going down Mr. Tucker's driveway, because you know, we want, our deliveries are going to be very small. You might have 2 grain trucks per month, but we don't want them going down his driveway or anywhere else for that matter, simply for the inconvenience of the driver and Mr. Tucker. So it would be our intention to have the signage. We think the 25 square feet is sufficient. I mean, we could do something different if the Planning Commission so wishes, but I think we could put up an effective directional sign there that would make it very clear that you make that right turn and up you would go to the distillery. So that had been our intention all along. So, and the condition does lend itself to that. Mr. Chairman, just one thing, if I could correct myself. Mr. Smith pointed out to me that no, that is a drilled well on the property. I think that's 565 feet now, a drilled one. But we would probably put it in an additional well.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion, questions?
You hadn't yet closed the public hearing,
Sorry,
so when you're ready.
thank you. We will now close the public hearing. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any motions?
I move we accept it as it's.
Second. You can't have two brewers,
All right,
distillers,
yeah.
and wineries.
So we have a motion from Mr. Duke, a second from Mr. Myers. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Excuse me, if
Yes,
I
ma'am.
may, I apologize. I
Thank
believe
you.
Mr. Satterwhite wants to switch the Exhibit A to the one that he showed, which has an additional building. So if you're willing to do that, then it would be as amended, and you would use the Exhibit A that he had, which just had the one additional building. Was that your request? So,
Thank you for the clarification. So with the amended additional building,
I move we approve it with the amended additional.
and do we have a second?
Yes, I do.
Proper second. Thank you. All right. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is recommended for approval.
Mr. Chairman, the next 2 items this evening will be called together. We're going to have one public hearing with 2 separate votes. It's a rezoning application and a conditional use permit. Application filed by James E. Sumrall III. It's requesting zoning reclassification of 1.25 acres from A1 Agricultural General to B1 Business General, and a conditional use permit for an auto repair shop and towing service at 4746 Broad Street Road on tax map numbers 6125T and 6154A. The properties are zoned B1 and A1 currently, and in total 1.8 acres. The CUP is required by Article 16, Section 3.9, and the comprehensive plan designates this area as county state institutional.
Good evening. This will be a combined public hearing and 2 separate votes. So the first one is a rezoning request for auto repair, towing, and recovery at 4746 Broad Street Road. Site is located in the Haydensville, Fife area. It is identified on the comprehensive plan as public county-owned because it was formerly the Company 6 Haydensville Fire Rescue, as you can see there in blue. Properties to the, this property is currently zoned Agriculture General, and properties to the west is B1, to the east is B1. To the south is also commercial with some rural residential uses. The property that's proposed to be rezoned is mostly wooded. Portion of it was used for the fire rescue, which is down here near Broad Street Road. The applicant does propose to keep a 30-foot buffer, which is consistent with our code. He's also proposing to put in a fence to screen or mitigate visibility into the site from the adjacent agriculture use. As I mentioned before, a portion of the property was formerly used by Company 6 Haydensville Fire Rescue. The applicant is proposing to use this property as part of his towing and recovery business with minor auto repair. The site is located in an area identified in the comprehensive plan as a rural crossroad area. Commercial uses are inappropriate to consider in the rural crossroads area. A community meeting was held on January 3rd or 23rd at Company 6 Haydensville Fire Rescue. Staff and board member Ms. LaScalette and 7 property owners attended that meeting. There were questions on the type of fence, the number of vehicles stored, and repair of vehicles. That concludes this presentation. I can answer any questions about the rezoning, or I can go straight into the conditional use. Yes, sir.
Do you know what percentage of his business is going to be towing, and what part is repairs?
Could you ask that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Approximately what percentage of his business is going to be towing and recovery, and what part is going to be repairs?
I would have to let him answer that. The applicant, I'm sorry. I'd have to let the applicant. Do you want me to get him up here now, or do you want me to continue?
Well, if he's going to speak during the, when the chairman invites him,
Okay.
If he's not.
Well, I think he's intending to say a few words. So, all right. This is the conditional use, the request for the conditional use permit for auto repair, towing, and recovery. It's for 1.1 acres at 4746 Broad Street Road. This is the entire site, including the former fire rescue building. That's a picture of the existing building. So some of the principles for rural crossroads area are reuse of existing buildings, which the applicant plans to do. He's going to keep the building and reuse it. Limit the area to the crossroads rather than to create strip development that would not be in character with the area. And it also discourages residential development. The applicant has stated that response time is extremely important when responding to a traffic accident. The proximity of this property to the I-64 interchange is what is so appealing. However, staff does have concerns with the visibility of inoperable vehicles. The applicant will need to screen the inoperable vehicles. In addition to the conditional use permit, we will limit the number of inoperable vehicles to 30. Although the applicant has agreed to this limitation, he did have some hesitancy. He was citing that he's relying on third-party insurance companies to remove the vehicles from his site, but he did agree to it. Additionally, there will be an screening of a fence on the areas shown. It's an expense the applicant, is having to bear, so he has cited that he would do this in phases. So, for example, he may only operate, in the existing building and where the fire rescue is currently operating, and then maybe in a few years he may expand. All this will be indicated on a plan of development that he will need to submit to us, outlining kind of the phased lines, if you will. Should the commission recommend approval, the following conditions are recommended. The use is limited to a tow service and auto repairs only on vehicles towed to the site. Number 2 deals with the plan of development. He's can't start until the PUD is approved. Number 3, the site plan shall generally conform to the site plan as shown as Exhibit A. Number 4 deals with parking. 12 parking spaces are required for this. Number 5 is the limit on automobiles. We limited it to 30 automobiles, inoperable vehicles. And number 6 deals with repair activities. Number 7 is standard condition for all the legal compliance for county, state, federal laws. Number 8 deals with storage. This no outside storage of automobile parts, petroleum, or equipment for auto repair. Number 9, screening. Automobiles will be stored or awaiting repair will be screened from view. Number 10 deals with the expiration, which is in 5 years. Number 11 deals with the transfer or lease of the property. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. The applicant is also here.
Any questions for Mr. Garrison? No. All right. Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Yes, sir. I'm James Summerall.
Just get your name and address in the microphone, please. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out here this evening. My name is James E. Summerall, and I propose my business location at 4746 Broad Street Road. Predominantly, we are a towing recovery service. I didn't want to be limited to no repairs. I want to be able to repair your car, say your family member or whoever it may be that I tow in that may be out there looking to try to make their way home. So that's basically what I'm looking to do, just repair what I tow, my normal customers or what have you. I'm not looking to make this per se a repair facility, full-fledged facility. Most of my work is towing, and quite honestly, we do a lot better with towing than we do repair, money-wise. So as far as the vehicles, don't project many vehicles being there. Just it's the process with the insurance, come and pick those up. So you might have 3 or 4 vehicles during the course of a week. During that week, crash, and it's constantly like a cycle. Basically, you won't see the same ones, but you should see. You're not going to see any because my plan, like Greg mentioned, is to put a privacy fence around that side. I'm going to start with a small fenced area that's going to incorporate the building, and then just maybe grow with the community. I'm looking to try to offer some jobs, some people in the community, and hopefully offer a great service. We, like he mentioned, we are first responders. We work for the county and the state police. Our required time to get to the scene is 30 minutes. Regardless of how long it took them out there, we got to get there in 30 minutes. If we're not there in 30 minutes, they turn us away. And they wait another 30 minutes for another truck. But that's how that works. So it's imperative that we're there on time. Being a half mile from the interstate in dead center in the zone, I can respond anywhere on time. That's what I plan to do there. Most of the trucks, all the trucks will mostly be inside the building where they're on the job, hopefully working.
Where do your requests come from mostly? From the people involved in the accidents themselves or the state board?
Virginia State Police, Louisiana County Sheriff's Office, Powhatan Sheriff's Office. We operate in those other counties.
You are aware that the people involved in the accident have an option of making their own arrangements?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, and you know that's all that's usually handled before we even arrive. You know, the police officer asked if you have a preference or a personal request, and all that's usually handled. Usually should be handled before we arrive because it shouldn't be an issue. When we get there on scene out there in the middle of the interstate, picking up a vehicle, it should not be a problem. We should be there to get the job done and get out. Being that we're being killed 1 every 6 days on the side of the highway. So our job is to get in and to get out. We offer heavy rescue as well. So we're out there working on the interstate.
Any other questions for the applicant?
How many employees do you have?
I just got me and one other guy at this moment.
Well, it seems like you're cognizant of the fact that of screening all these vehicles, when we don't want it to look like a junkyard, you know, that you have while you drive down the road and you see all this stuff everywhere.
Like all over the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
improve on that.
exactly. You know, and that's exactly. I bought the place. I didn't rent it, and I want it to look good. Last thing I want it to look like a junkyard. I also bought the place over in Powhatan. Are you familiar right here over here on Maidens Road, 4050 Maidens Road? Anybody around here been around here a long time in Goochland? Right there in Mishaw. For the longest time, that was the dump on the left, an old white building on the road. I bought that 11 acres and I cleaned the whole place up. There's a parking lot there, and all the buildings are getting refurbished. So that's how I operate. I clean it up, make it pretty.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all's time this evening.
All right. So we've heard from staff. We've heard from the applicant. We would like to open the public hearing, unless the commission has any questions for staff before we open the public hearing. Anything else? Let's open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to come forward, please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Sam Piazza. I live at 4746 Three Chop Road, less than a half a mile from there. We already have a repair facility right across the street, and it's an eyesore. The last thing that we need in that area is another eyesore. We are trying to improve our own properties. Again, it's a rural area, and I get that, but to us, this is not improving the area. And I would ask that y'all vote this down. We don't need another junkyard there. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak?
I'm James Myers, and I live at Shannon Hill. I visit that area every
What's
day.
your address?
4964 Shannon Road.
Thank you.
All right, I live there, and every day I go at least 1 or 2 times down there. You cannot build a fence unless it's 40 foot tall that you can't see wrecked junk cars from 629 when you turn off 250 there. I do not want it. I think he could go somewhere else and live. My opinion is like a gentleman here. We don't need no more junk around our neighborhood up there. So I suggest that it be voted down. Thank you.
I'm Lena Taylor, and I live at 4250 Haydensville Farms Road. I go by there all the time, and I think that the property could be used a whole lot better and do something that would enhance our neighborhood. I like things looking really, really nice and so forth. I don't think that that's going to do anything at all to benefit our neighborhood or our subdivision. Haydensville Farms is a subdivision that I live in, and we maintain that subdivision extremely well. And I just don't think that this is a good use for the property. I think that the fire department was wonderful. They opened up the firehouse to us so that we were able to have meetings and so forth there. And I just feel like that the community could use that property so much better in a more creative way than to use it as a junkyard. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charles Shannon. I live at 4746 Three Chop Road in Haydensville, and I'm against this also. The property is not big enough for a towing business. there's an industrial park just a quarter mile north of Interstate 64 that is almost vacant. And somebody needs to check the corner of 629 and Broad Street. Has anybody done any work down there? All that water from that side of the road is washing over to the other side of the road. VDOT has filled a sinkhole over there twice in the last 2 years with 15 tons of crush and run. And if you drive by tomorrow, you're gonna see a hole that you can stand in, up to my shoulders, because there's a drainage problem in that corner. And if he's gonna put a parking lot there on that angled piece of property, it's gonna wash. And then you're really gonna have a problem. Anyway, I'm against this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Fernell Shepherd, 4612 Haydensville Farm Lane. I'll just start off saying I'm against it. But here's what's bothering me. Sunday, all the cars that we had, and trucks that we have, were out of gas. We had to go up the street to Broad to go ahead and get them gassed. Didn't see a zoning sign at Broad where the two requests are addressed at. It's a quarter mile down the road on 629. I called zoning, told them about it Monday. Tuesday, there's a zoning sign there. So the artery of 250 hasn't been marked the time it should have been before the community meeting. Community minutes aren't available. The community meeting minutes aren't available. Have a little problem with that because there is some contention. So I also suggest that maybe you go through the process from the get-go again and put it on 250 long enough for people to really see, because we use it to get from Haydensville to the courthouse area. It's heavily used by the residents. The other thing, and I talked to Buddy Duke that I was going to say this. Yeah, he's got a lot of cars hanging out at his shop, and he does a lot of turnover of business. He is an asset to the community. He's also going to be the first one to tell you he's gotten broken into regularly because of all the cars out there. And he's done a whole lot to try to prevent that. Putting up concrete barriers at the road and everything. What the other gentleman said about the washout, that's a good point too. So I ask that y'all, I'm not in favor of it. I ask that you vote it down, but I also ask that you be fair to the voting citizens of Western Goochland. Put the sign for the right period of time on Broad, not just 629. The other question I have for the gentleman with Bumpus Towing, how many trucks does he have? If it's just him and another man, and he's already got 2 shops, is he prepared for the third already? Because tow trucks aren't cheap. And I agree also, it'd take one heck of a fence to really block everything. Where he's located in Bumpus, those are a lot of cars stored on that lot. And I think he's also a backhoe business. So what do we do? There's nothing in there about automotive storage in the request. I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Casey Spees. I'm a resident of Goochland, 3360 North Road, Sandy Hook. I'm also the realtor that sold this property. And I think some of the questions that were brought up earlier about seeing cars and so forth, we met extensively prior to his purchase of this property with the committee to address some of the concerns. And as far as the signs, as far as the zoning signs, as a resident, it was on 250 and it was on Old Fredericksburg Road, so I'm not sure why somebody didn't see it. But the biggest concern I'm hearing is the concern of seeing vehicles. He's stated while we were all present, he's not storing vehicles there. He's going to have a fenced-in area. They're not 100 cars piled up on top of each other. It's 6 feet, 10 feet. There's not an extensive visibility issue for what he's doing. He's more than willing to address the opacity of the fence that's required so that there's not an eyesore. So as a resident, I look at it as I've got an opportunity for a first responder to be able to tend to my family or me if I wreck. he can get there faster. Sure, there are other tow companies. The reality is it's a good business, it's a good location. That particular property will not facilitate a brewery or a restaurant or a daycare center. We've already looked in, we were aware that that was a previous attempt on that property. So it won't house very many other types of businesses, and I think it's an opportunity for us to have another first responder in Goochland County. So as a resident, I would say to move forward to approve. And I've already closed on the property, so I don't have any benefit of speaking to it. I'm speaking to it because I believe in the cause. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Becky Parrish. I live at 3689 Rondell Lane, Mineral, Virginia, right at Haydensville. I don't feel that Goochland is in need of another tow truck company. We've got several everywhere over the county. The tow truck drivers have a schedule that they go, and they go from one to the next, and that's how they use them and do their job. I've never heard of anybody having a problem getting on time. I haven't heard a lot of good things from Bumpus Towing. His costs and his attitude, which worries me, because when you're in an accident, you need someone that's going to be caring, understanding, and helping you out. And from what I can tell, I know with Goochland, I think it's 3, I can't remember, 3 or 4 on the, you can only have 3 or 4 vehicles on a lot with tags. If they don't have tags, you can't have them. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Can I say something again? Can I come back up there?
Would the applicant like to have a rebuttal, a short rebuttal?
That's all I like to.
You can address the commission at the podium.
Thank you, sir. I just would like to, first of all, just let y'all know the last person that just came up here to address you is my competition. So guess what? They're not going to say anything good about me. And the last thing they want me is in this county doing business against them. She owns a Parish Record Service. I'm right down the street from her. Whether they comply with any commercial laws or whatever, I have no idea. It's none of my business. I'm here to conduct my business. But just so you know, that's who was there. I conduct my business the way I need to conduct business. And that's just the way it is. I do what I got to do, and I am there to help people in their time of need. And I just want to let you know.
Can you address the concerns about the screening?
As far as the fence, yeah. It's going to be a fenced-in lot. And it's going to be a small lot because I'm not going to keep cars there. My intention is not to make a junkyard. I do not want it to look like Buddy's place across the street, not condemning Buddy. Like Buddy. Talk to Buddy. Plan on sending work to Buddy because I don't want to do engine work. I don't want to have cars sitting around looking like that. He's a state inspection shop. Plan to send work over there. I tow vehicles in there all the time. And I am from Goochland County. I was born and raised here in Goochland County. I won the Goochland Day Race on my bicycle right here in 1977 on a single-speed bicycle. So y'all can make your decisions on other people's hearsay, but I'm here to run a sound business in the county. I'm also running the same business in other counties. I'm just expanding. Sometimes people are going to hate on you for that. People don't like you to do good. I just plan on doing better. Thank y'all. Appreciate your time.
Any other, so we're gonna, any other people who would wish to speak in the public hearing? No? All right, we're gonna close the public hearing. Questions, comments from the commission?
I'd like to, I'm still concerned about the fencing. I mean, I obviously kind of share the citizens' objections to that. I'd like to know what the staff considers adequate fencing. 8 foot high, solid.
With requested elevation.
Yeah. Compared to the topography of the land.
I mean, it would be an opaque fence. I mean, if there's topography, it's certainly something to take into consideration, but if it drops down, you can't put a 20-foot fence in there. It would kind of look out of place. I'm not sure what's your question exactly?
Well, I think before we approve it, I'd be concerned that the vehicle stored there would be basically out of sight, somebody driving down the road.
I don't.
Mr. Shellhorse, the condition does say that the vehicles have to be screened from view of all public roads and adjoining properties.
Mr. Rocket Chair.
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. But you're right, there is going to be a limit to the height of the fence, and I don't know the topography, but that is the condition, that is the requirement. It doesn't say an 8-foot fence, it says sufficient to be clean, you know.
And I assume that's checked. And the county will verify that whatever fence is put up is adequate to shield the POD.
Yes, sir. I mean, you know, it was mentioned earlier, Mr. Brewer, we have these conditions so that we can police it. So these conditions are going to give us the authority to go out there and regulate it. So if he is in violation, we have these conditions to back up our argument.
Mr. Myers.
Yes, sir.
I want to be as objective as possible. With, across the street, I know Buddy Duke very, very well, and he runs a great business. But someone brought up the, you know, since the issue of screening came up, Buddy's been there a long time. That was run by his father, Glenn, and before him Glenn Sr. And they also have automobiles around, some of which have been there quite a few years. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm just trying to draw a parallel to find out how come. And I know in Buddy does not have a towing and recovery business. He only has a repair, service, and inspection business. But I'm sort of curious to know why the screening requirement doesn't apply over there as well.
He's grandfathered.
He's grandfathered.
I can only assume that he is.
Okay.
I don't know how long he's been there, but if he was there prior before,
yeah, long time.
then he's grandfathered. Yeah,
okay.
That's exactly it. Okay. And Mr. Ruxter, I do believe there is a little bit of topography kind of near the intersection. There's a guardrail right there, but I believe it flattens out over in this area here. I mean, it's certainly something we can look at with the fence. Vegetation's also an appropriate, is something that can be used for the code. And it would get taller, but it's not going to be immediate.
Can I add one thing? There's 60 foot of trees buffer between my property and the street. I can't touch.
Yeah, Mr. Summer's correct. There's excess right away there. Although he can't claim it, the applicant can't claim it as part of his buffer. I mean, it is there. I mean, you have to, so something else to take into consideration.
Any questions for Mr. Garrison? Do we have a,
This is for
any-
5 years.
this is will be
Correct.
first.
It's 5 years.
And you do have before you two things to
Two.
vote on.
That's correct.
The rezoning and then the CUP.
Correct, and it's, one of the parcels is already zoned, correct? And one was a rezoning, so the old Fredericksburg Road is the rezone, correct?
Correct.
To match the Broad Street Road parcel.
Right. Let me. Am I going
And then
backwards?
we have the conditional use permit in addition to that. So, two items, two separate votes. I guess we will start in order. Who would like to vote on item number 4, or motion item number 4? Mr. Myers? The rezoning.
I move that we rezone.
Mr. Duke?
Yeah, I move that we rezone it as to meet match to the
All right.
adjoining property.
So we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second for item number 4 for the rezoning of 1.25 acres. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, the second item we have is the conditional use permit. Do we have a motion?
I move we accept it as is written.
We have another motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, we are recommending approval for the rezoning, and we are recommending approval for the conditional use permit. Thank you. Mrs. Parker?
The next item on the agenda tonight is in District 5, RZ 2006-00013A. Application filed by Land Investment Associates LLC requesting a proffer amendment to rezoning case RZ 2006-00013 to amend text requiring a cash proffer payment for a traffic signal on Broad Street Road on tax map number 47-10780, located at 105 Broad Street Road. The property is zoned B1 Business General with proffers and consists of 19.429 acres. The comprehensive plan designates this area as commercial.
Again, thank you, Ms. Parker. Members of the Commission, Tom Coleman, Principal Planner. As this was introduced, this is a request to amend the zoning proffer for a 19-acre parcel that's zoned B1 at the southeast quadrant of Broad Street Road and Mannequin Road. And this is in the eastern portion of the county. The subject property is recommended for commercial use in the comprehensive plan, as are other properties to the east and to the west and to the north across Broad Street. To the south, there's a recommendation for a residential zone, residential. And looking at the zoning map, again, the subject property is zoned business, as are properties to the east and the west and to the north across Broad, and the property to the south is zoned RPUD. Looking at the aerial photo, you do see there's use on the site, and there are a variety of uses, and there's a mixture of uses in this area, including residential, office, commercial, and undeveloped property. Just to step back a little bit, the purpose of this proffer, approval would facilitate the refund of a cash proffer payment of $64,000 that was previously paid to the county. The history of that: in 2007, the property was rezoned to B1 with proffers for future development of retail and office uses. One of the proffers did require a cash down payment of $64,000 for future signal at the intersection of Broad Street and Mannequin Road. The applicant paid that $64,000 to the county as required. Around 2012, VDOT authorized and funded installation of that traffic signal as a part of the improvements that were done to Broad Street about that time. VDOT did decline to accept the $64,000 payment when the county contacted VDOT about that. Just some more information about the proffer restrictions and how we administrate them. The $64,000 was proffered for a traffic signal. However, the funds can be used for other projects to improve traffic conditions in that area. The county does have 12 years to spend the transportation proffer money. The state code dictates that the transportation cash proffers that are not spent within that time frame will be sent to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. The only way the monies can be returned to the applicant is through a proffer amendment, which the applicant has proposed this evening. If the funds were not returned, the county has transportation improvement projects to spend the funds on. And I would also like to note that as far as that 12-year time limit, that 12-year time limit would expire this summer. So we are approaching the end of that 12-year limit. Now, I'll highlight the underlying portion of the proffer, and we'll read that. Notwithstanding the foregoing, if the $64,000 plus interest it has earned from payment are not used for the referenced traffic signal improvements, then upon written request of the property owner, the $64,000 plus interest it has earned from payment shall be returned to the property owner within 30 days of such written request. And there was a community meeting held in January. One citizen attended and did have some questions about how and when the site will develop. That concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go back one screen. When this was done, it was written that it would be returned upon written request?
No, the underlying portion is their application.
That's their application.
They're requesting that text amendment. Yes, sir.
Would the applicant have a party company with his 64K if he knew in advance that the traffic light would be funded by VDOT? I mean, would he have profit $64,000 if he had known beforehand that the traffic light was to be funded by VDOT?
I would have to direct that question to the applicant to answer.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Coleman? What's the department's position on this? Anything?
Pardon?
Is there any position on this at the county? I guess it's being proffered. It would.
I mean,
neutral.
No, I mean the proffer is inappropriate if ultimately it's a board decision whether that money is returned or not. But before that decision could be appropriately asked, this proffer amendment would have to be in place.
Understood. Has this been done in the past?
I'm not aware of any similar requests like this.
Let me rephrase my question. Okay. At the time, would the applicant have gotten a favorable ruling had he not proffered his $64,000?
Mr. Myers, you're asking me to answer on behalf of the board back in 2007, okay. So that I would have to say that was one part of a larger request. Sir.
So you're not aware of any that we've, I guess, reversed?
Yeah, I mean, let me qualify that. I would say it's not common to have a cash down payment as a part of a proffer. I mean, typically when we see cash proffers, it is a payment that is paid in association with COs or building permits in the future. That's a more normal way that they're.
It's not common practice.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Because typically the proffer would be paid only when the work was contracted for, not 10 years ahead of time.
Well, with this one, to get more involved, there was a $64,000 down payment required. There could have been a greater cost incurred by the applicant based on the cost that all the property owners would have had to pay in the future. But none of those, none of those monies were put towards the signal. So the VDOT identified the funding for the signal, and they paid for it out of state funds.
So they didn't want the money or need the money?
Correct. The county contacted VDOT about offering them the money, and they declined.
Oh, okay. So VDOT would rather spend the taxpayers' money than the applicant's money. Is that what it was?
I would defer to VDOT to answer that question, Mr. Barrett.
Okay. All right. Are any other questions for Mr. Coleman? All right. Would the applicant please come forward?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Andy Conlon from Roth Jackson, 11 South 12th Street, City of Richmond. I have with me Robert Tuck and Timothy Martin from the ownership group. The slide says 1998 approval. It was actually 2007, not approval, just to clarify. And also to clarify, this cash proffer is not, the statement that's up there is not complete. I'm going to refer to that real quick as far as one line. But this is a simple request really related to ask for a clarification of where the money should go. As has already been talked about, and I think Mr. Coleman's done a good job of outlining what the request is and what the issue is, but I do want to point out the request does not change anything with respect to the quality standards or any other proffer that we're asking for, specifically as to landscaping or architecture. It's simply to do with the disposition of this particular funds that have already been paid into the county. These funds were paid specifically, as the applicant has told me, as when it was originally zoned in 2007, to address the impact, the anticipated impact from the traffic that would come from this development. The $64,000, unusual, was paid up front to be able to have the cash to make sure it was there because they didn't know the timing of the development. But there was going to be development on other properties anticipated around this intersection, and they would also contribute. If those didn't get rezoned, get developed, we were also on the hook for the remainder of the cost as it came through, but that would be paid when that cost came. But the anticipation was that other properties would also contribute, that were going to be contributing to that light. Interestingly enough, there was no other requirement for road improvements that would be impacted from this development that were required as part of that original 2007 zoning. I would only, as a slight clarification, and because there is sometimes a discussion and a disagreement about the language, I would point out that the very next line that comes to the proffer actually says, Goochland County shall retain such funds in an interest-bearing account for such use exclusively, meaning such use, in our opinion, referring back to the traffic light, exclusively, that it can only be used for that purpose. It's actually our position that the county doesn't get to use the funds because the state law actually says that if the proffers otherwise restrict, then it must go to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. I think that's an aside and a moot point, quite frankly. Our development is not going to cause the need for other developments and the funds that are going to be used for that, but really, it's a question of fairness. The money was paid for the traffic light. It was paid early. Typically, we wouldn't have to pay it until such time as the CO, and if the light was already in, this would be a moot point. There would be no money to return, so it's an unusual situation. But to be fair, the money was paid, was not used, and it was intended specifically for a traffic light that's already up. The money should come back to the applicant. With that, we just simply ask that you recommend this to the Board of Supervisors. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the applicants?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing item, so we will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to come forward? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
I don't think government should keep citizens' money for no reason, especially when VDOT says they didn't need it for that project.
Understood. Anyone else? Any comments? Mr. Rockacherry?
Yeah. I make a motion that we approve the proffer change.
I second it.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
The next case tonight is in District 5, RZ 2019-00002, application by William Massey III, requesting zoning reclassification of 3.082 acres from B1 Business General, RN Residential Neighborhood, and M1 Industrial Limited to B1 Business General, with proffers for development of retail uses on tax map number 64-3-3-1-0, 64-3-3-2-0, 64-3-3-3-0, 64-3-3-52-A, and a portion of 64-1-0-41-0.984 acres. The property is located at 12594 and 12608 Patterson Avenue. The comprehensive plan designates this area as flexible with residential and prime economic development.
Thank you, members of the commission. As Ms. Parker said, this is a rezoning application. It's a group of parcels and a portion of a parcel totaling approximately 3 acres. There are 3 different existing zonings on the property, including business, residential neighborhood, industrial limited, and they are seeking to combine them under one B1 district for a coordinated development on the site. This is located in the southeastern portion of the county. You see in the comprehensive plan, most of the property is recommended for residential, or excuse me, flexible, including residential, and there's a portion that is recommended for prime economic development. And looking at the zoning map, you do see the 3 different zonings, including the sort of the pink color, which is a commercial zoning, and the orangish color, which is the residential zoning, and the M1, which is the purple color. And looking at the aerial photograph, sort of see that there is an existing structure and some parking areas on one of the parcels. There was a structure on the westernmost parcel that was removed a few years ago. There was a community meeting in January. About 10 people attended. There were several questions, mostly involving traffic, including the increasing traffic on Patterson Avenue, the proposed site access, and access from a future road that's planned to serve the Oak Hill site, which is a part of the West Creek development, the possibility of a traffic signal at this location, and then also questions about the size of the buffer along Patterson Avenue, the potential tenants, and the noise that might be associated with development. Just looking at the conceptual plan that was submitted by the applicant, it is for a retail center, about 10,000 square feet. I will direct the commission's attention to the board behind you. There is a new road that would be serving the Oak Hill site into West Creek, and the primary entrance to the site would be off of this roadway. There's also an access off of Patterson Avenue. There have been some discussions with the VDOT. The final decisions have not been made on the location and the design of that roadway, but it certainly, as you can see here, it is proposed for a right-in, right-out access, approximately where shown on this. This is in the overlay district, so they would require a certificate of approval and a plan and development and other type of development approvals would be required. Just the outstanding concerns that the staff has with this application, the conceptual plan that was submitted with this application didn't really provide enough detail to demonstrate that the future development would comply with the overlay district, plan development, and other development regulations. And as I mentioned earlier, that there's an ongoing dialogue between the applicant and VDOT regarding that access on Patterson. So final decisions have not been made on that. And the applicant did submit one proffer. I won't read that proffer to you, but it does restrict certain uses from being located if this application is approved. And that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Coleman, it's my understanding that R1 is the most, RN is the most restrictive of the 3 existing zonings. M1 is the least restrictive. Am I correct?
That's fair to say, yes, sir.
Okay. It didn't say what proportions of those lots were which existing. Okay. Could you answer that?
I mean, I can direct you to the zoning map that's in the presentation. It's on the screen. It's in there, and I think visually that gives the proportions.
Most of it now?
Most of it, over half of it, is existing B1.
Okay.
There's only one little piece. Yeah, there's only one small piece of RN, which is actually a well lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully that provides proportions. I don't have percentage breakout.
Okay. So you'd have a very small of the most of the most restrictive and a fairly large part of the least restricted going into sort of the mid.
Right.
the mid-range restrictions, right?
That's fair to say, yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
And could you go back to the slide where the staff's concerned toward the end of the application? And Mr. Coleman, just to clarify, when the conceptual plan, at what time would you like to see that provide enough information for the staff to feel comfortable?
I would say it's sort of a common practice to provide a acceptable plan, maybe with a rezoning application like this that shows location, size of buildings, parking areas, maybe buffers and things like that. And I think that information wasn't provided here. There will be future reviews. There'll be a plan of development. There's future opportunities to review that. But we highlighted that because that was sort of representative of this application, or reflective of this application.
Any questions for Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, whatever they decide to do with it, even though we don't have a plan now, will still have to be approved.
Yes, sir.
Later. Yeah.
There'll be a series of approvals. Yes.
So we're concerned primarily with the rezoning. So, any other questions for Mr. Coleman? Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Preston Lloyd. I'm an attorney with Williams Mullen, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Appreciate the opportunity to present this evening. Rather than go through a presentation that I have prepared, I think I'm going to defer to questions, or if there are any comments from the community, certainly glad to respond to those. But to answer a few questions that have been raised in your conversations with staff this evening, you're exactly right. This is an initial step in a development plan that's intended to authorize a specific use. What the final composition of a retail center will look like will completely depend upon what kind of leasing activity they're able to have. So if we were to proffer in a specific layout with a certain configuration, and we find that that doesn't work in the process of trying to lease it up, we're going to find ourselves right back before you saying, that plan didn't work, how about this one? The county, fortunately, has a much more prudent process that avoids that whack-a-mole kind of situation where we're going to have to come through and negotiate a plan of development and go through the certificate of appropriateness process as part of the design overlay district. So as Mr. Duke correctly summarized, there will be additional county eyes put on this and ultimately approved to ensure that it complies with the county's clear expectations as to engineering and also as to setbacks and access. This is purely a conversation about, is this an appropriate use for this location in the county? We submit to the Planning Commission that it is. Welcome your comments. Glad to provide further comment on or response to any of your questions, and appreciate your consideration this evening.
Any questions for the applicant? All right. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward?
Cliff Singer, 14406 Savage Street Place, Midlothian. I own 25 lots in Huguenot Hill, and just want to make sure that any roadways and utility plans support development for our part of Goochland there, the whole Huguenot Hills area. And so I'm in support of this. I think this is a great thing. It'll help West Creek develop, and hopefully the development in this part of the county obviously will support the rest of the county remaining rural. That's the whole idea.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
Well, my rationale is that the whole blasted thing in with 3 acres, and you're not going to get a whole lot of residential on that little piece that's currently zoned RN. But you're going to give up a whole lot of that less restrictive M1, and I think that would be a better deal for the surrounding neighbors. So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Myers. I mean, I can't imagine anybody wanting to build or residents along Patterson Avenue.
Yeah.
We have recently approved last year a development just to the west of this for the Pruitts, similar situation. And looking at the size and the configuration of this total piece of property, I can't imagine you'd have anything other than a small office building with parking that the county requires. And with the overlay district, I think it's it'd be a small enough location for a nice retail space with the typical stores that would go in a 10,000 square foot retail space. Don't seem to have any objection to that.
Any further discussion? We have a motion.
I move that we recommend approval.
Mr. Myers, Mr. Dukes with the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Recommend approval. Mrs. Parker.
Our final case tonight is District 4, RZ 1987-00013F, application filed by PWC Properties, LLC, the Riverstone Group, LLC, Commonwealth Foundation for Cancer Research, and ELP Richmond, LLC, requesting a proffer amendment to rezoning case RZ 1987-00013 to conform stormwater facility requirements with current county regulations on tax map numbers 595010, 595020, 595050, and 5932W8, located on Wilkes Ridge Parkway. The property is zoned M1 Industrial Limited with proffers and consists of 150.563 acres. The comprehensive plan designates this area as prime economic development.
Thank you, Ms. Park and members of the commission. This is another application to amend a zoning proffer. It applies to about 150 acres in West Creek Business Park along Wilkes Ridge Parkway. And the property is zoned M1, industrial with proffers. This is located in the eastern portion of the county. The subject property and all the surrounding properties are recommended for prime economic development in the comprehensive plan. And the subject property and most of the properties share of that M1 industrial zoning. There is a piece of commercially zoned property just to the northwest. Look at their photo. I highlighted the one parcel. I do have a copy of the site plan for the presentation, but the commission did approve a conceptual master plan for the Erickson Continuum of Care facility on that site, about 1,400 acres. So there has been a conceptual plan approved for that site. The other sites, there has not been a conceptual plan or anything brought to the commission's attention on that for that property to date. Again, the purpose of this request, they're requesting to amend the proffer so that any future development in this area would conform to the current stormwater management regulations. With the approval of the 1987 proffer, there was a specific proffer addressing stormwater regulation. We refer to it as the 5010 standard. Don't want to go into a lot of detail on that, but it is different than what the current regulations. And as you can imagine, since 1987, there have been a lot of changes in the environmental regulations, typically to improve stormwater quality. The current standards address both stormwater management, but also address nutrient loads. And really by removing this proffer, then this development would have to conform to the current regulations as all the other development does. So it would remove this proffer requirement for a different stormwater regulation standard, if that makes sense. I said there was an conceptual site plan approved for this site last year. During the community meeting, those citizens or adjacent property owners attended this community meeting. And again, I won't go over, I won't read this in detail, but again, with the approval of this proffer as proposed, this would remove that old stormwater standard, and they would have to conform to the current stormwater management standards. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We don't have any questions. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, again, Preston Lloyd with Williams Mullen on behalf of the applicants. If I could have the site plan brought up on a slightly larger conceptual plan, I should say. I think staff very accurately and concisely summarized the request. The implications here, if it's a little difficult to see, I don't know if perhaps we can scroll down just slightly and make that visible on the full screen there. Maybe by zooming out just a few clicks might help there at the top. That's great. Thank you. The implication of what's being proposed is you'll see a number of stormwater detention facilities that are shown on this plan, with the caveat that we haven't gotten to the point where we've done full engineering on the site. By bringing it into conformance with the county's current standards rather than the 5010 requirements from the 1987 proffers, will potentially allow for less trees to be brought down and the preservation of more of that area that would otherwise have to be cleared in order for stormwater detention facilities to be constructed. The property is actually surrounded by two creeks that provide additional drainage opportunity to help deal with rainwater that'll be running off of the impervious surfaces created by the project. And that can actually be incorporated as part of the design engineering of the site. But under the existing 5010 standard, there would be considerably more stormwater detention required on the site itself. So that's the justification. That's why we believe it's in the county's public interest, not just to make a concession to this particular project, but because it will actually improve the quality of the development and the experience for the residents there. Beyond that, happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Today's standards are more strict than what were done in 87.
I wouldn't say they're more strict, they're just different, Mr. Duke. So as staff described, the detention standard is met with some nutrient protections as well. And we have an engineer here. I'm quickly getting out of my depth, no pun intended, in terms of describing the stormwater requirements. So Kimley Horn would be glad to address those. Mark Boyd has joined us as well if you have any technical questions for him.
I was at a community meeting, so I asked the same question to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's open the public hearing. Anyone wish to come forward to speak? No? We will close the public hearing. Gentlemen, any questions, comments?
No, I have a problem upgrading the current standards. I mean, changing the current standards. I don't.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we recommend for approval.
Mr. Myers, motion. Mr. Duke, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to recommend approval. And I think that's our last case. Is that correct? So, Mrs. Parker, do we have any old business?
No old business, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any new business?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
And gentlemen, do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. All right.